We earlier had blended learning, right? But I feel there's sort of another wheel now that's created, is that a lot of, at least when I was in Australia, this is what was happening, was parents had the choice whether they wanted to send their kids to school or not, right? And then there were these kids that were learning in school, right? How does education get affected, or how does the student learn when, or how
funnily enough, that's what I was going to come to next.
Yeah.
So another important consequence of what's happened with the pandemic is that different school systems in different parts of the world have adopted alternative responses to this. And so we've arrived at actually a very different world, where the relationship between schools, parents and students is conducted in a new way. And it's been very interesting, I think, to see the degree to which school systems and indeed parents and students have been able in some contexts to respond very fast to a very high measure of flexibility. Students are in for a couple of days a week, maybe 3 days a week. They might be the different students on different days studying different subjects, and somehow schools have got to be able to manage that, and teachers have got to be able to stay on top of students' learning. And of course what they're discovering is the platforms and the technology to manage that exists, it's out there, but they've got to quickly get their heads around how to deploy that. So there are very promising aspects to that, the degree to which actually we can emerge into a post-COVID world with a much higher resilience in terms of the flexibility between home and school, the communication capacity between teacher, parent and student. I think that there are very positive aspects to that. There are also, with all of this, there are also serious questions about, in particular, whether or not we are risking widening the advantage-disadvantage gap. That's a very, very serious question, and again, it's a serious question. It doesn't really matter whether you're in a developed economy, a highly connected economy, or a developing economy. The same questions arise, actually. Even in developed economies, we know perfectly well that there is a sizable minority of students, homes, parents who are who are less connected, less adaptable to new technologies, anyway less flexible in their capacity to manage their lives, relative to others who are highly advantaged. And there is a real risk that the highly advantaged pull even further away, and we widen that gap. And I think this is a thing that we really, really need to pay attention to in this coming period. What are we going to do to make sure that we don't widen the gap, but actually use these technologies, this flexibility, to see what we can do to close that gap? And that is a major systemic question. Wherever you are on the planet, that we're going to come out of this with some serious system questions about how we support, fund, and enable schools, parents, homes to be able to interconnect in this way, because we're not going back. Yes, we will go back into the classroom and we will return to face-to-face, but we know now that we need this level of resilience. So there's no going back to the previous world. We're going to emerge into a new way of schools interrelating with their community.